Too early for the tequila.
Hola!
Good morning. I say good
Buenos
morning. You
dias.
Good morning. Buenos dias, everyone. Welcome back to Coffee and Pan Dulce. Here we are again. I hope you are able to have enough time to grab your cup of coffee and have a seat because we're going to have a great show today. What I mean, great show, it'll be great show. You either get your horn and I'll get my chancla.
Are you pointing? Are you pointing, baby?
Let's welcome one of our co-hosts at Casa del Cano, Mr. Christian Cano. Come on in.
AKA the Chancla.
All right, you should have done that.
This is the Chancla Show.
I'm gonna bring a gong next week. I'm gonna totally overpower
Lord.
your little squeaker there.
Here it is, the battle
Just
of
like
the
the
day.
military starts doing a measuring contest. Oh my gosh. It's too early. It's too early.
Let me check y'all's coffee. Let me check y'all's coffee.
That's what you have in the coffee.
You don't need to be looking for none if you don't want none. All right.
All right.
Behave yourself.
All right.
Yes. Welcome.
Mazel.
Welcome to Coffee and Podcast. This is going to be a great show today. Today we are actually talking about the mysterious La Chancla. And for those who are still perplexed, we're going to explain to you the history of the Chancla, both pro and con. So it's kind of a little bit of Jay's show that happens on the first and third Wednesday of the month.
Wired and tired.
Yeah, wired and tired. That's right. But welcome. It is cold outside.
It's way too cold.
And
It's getting
entirely
better,
too
though. It's
cold.
getting
I
better.
object.
When Jenny got here, I was actually singing "Baby, It's Cold Outside," and she told me the history behind that
Very
song.
problematic.
Oh,
and very problematic lyrics.
It's a great Frank Lesser song. Do not put down Frank Lesser. He's a great artist, great songwriter.
Spoken
great
like a true
musician. He
conservative.
wrote
Likes
Guys
the good old 1955 Good
Guys-
Housewife
Guys-
raping
Guys-
narrative. Just unbelievable.
It is a beautiful song.
Just like the good old
Yeah.
days.
Good old rapey days.
Yes. So
when Bill Cosby could roofie in privacy.
yes. Well, we have digressed a little
With
bit.
Benadryl.
With
That's
Benadryl.
right. Welcome to Coffee About News. I'm Christian Cano. Today is November the
13th.
Exactly. Well,
Yes.
this is our 47th
You gotta get
47th
shoes
show.
off.
In a couple of weeks, we'll be celebrating our 1-year anniversary. Alexa, stop.
Woo-hoo.
So I want to welcome everyone. Our main clock is off. So
We're
the
off.
timekeeper today. Exactly. our official timekeeper today for our show is Jeff. So
Oh,
we
want
want to thank Jeff for
We're in
taking
so
that
much trouble.
responsibility.
The magic of technology.
Yes, the magic of technology.
I'm surprised you trust technology. I mean, because I would figure you'd think the band was listening in on you.
Exa-
Now, I mean, like,
Exactly.
I know he is.
All right, y'all. Let's
Watch
get
the
the
show.
show. Let's get the show started. I want to welcome everyone back, and we want to welcome back Mama Ruth, who's
Yeah.
been on for a couple of
Thank
weeks.
It's been a minute.
She
Yes, 2
has,
weeks.
she's been trying to Amber Alert her granddaughter, and so
She's trying to take her.
yes.
I can take her anywhere. She's with me.
Oh.
So the next big Amber Alert you see is going to be a picture of Ruth.
And Ruth going.
I'll be like Maria.
Throwing the chunk out the window, going,
I'll be like Survivor
chunk
Chunk
out. Oh, that baby's never gonna see no chocolate. That baby's gonna be so spoiled. That baby's gonna be a little princess. I
You
can
know,
already
you're right.
tell.
Not even my oldest, my firstborn, hasn't seen the chancla either.
Yo.
This is a great topic today.
It
is.
is.
And those of us who know about the chancla, we'll be talking about that. So,
Yes.
Coffee and News today. Let's go around. Let's salute. I
No,
forgot
let's
how
go around.
We've
Let's
already
go
blown
around.
it. We've already blown- That's all,
Yeah,
folks. Have a good morning.
Let's
Let's
go
call
around.
it freezing his brain.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. It's so cold out there.
Ooh.
Yeah, we all need to be shooting from like Miami. Why don't we have a budget to go to Miami?
Yeah.
Like,
Because we don't have a budget. So,
No,
you know,
no,
yeah.
that's
You know
right.
what? We
Yeah,
should
yeah,
start.
yeah.
We should start having at least to go and have a one show in Miami.
Oh,
We
that'd
should
be
all
good.
go.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Let's take a road trip. Will y'all come with
Road-
us? Come
Can
on.
you
road
imagine?
Woo! Yes.
Go from the Keys.
Maybe
Oh my
a spring
gosh.
break show or Or
Something. We'll find out.
That's
You know,
how
let's,
memories are made.
let's make a deal. You know, I heard, I don't know about y'all, but Mr. 45 is planning to move to Florida.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
yeah.
So we should go with him.
Yeah,
He made a
He never
joke
really
there.
left. I mean, 3 days a week he's in Florida. I mean, he's
Yeah.
at his resort playing golf. I mean, he
Correct.
only works 4 days a
We
week.
need to go down and party with the Trumpsters, man.
Well,
yeah.
That's the next phase of this show.
You know that there's going to be some cocaine and hookers down there. I mean, like, if
Hey,
you're into that sort of
Listen,
thing.
if everyone's
I mean,
taking advantage of it, why not us also?
I mean, kind of like the RNC will be next year. I mean, we've already taken over the show. We've blown the balloon out. We've blown it.
We have a lot of competition today. The impeachment public
Tonight.
hearings just started 10 minutes ago.
That's no big deal.
So we're competing
Forget
against
about
the
it.
excitement. Forget about it.
Oh, remember, he's not a pro
That's right.
speechman.
He
so.
will be when it's over. Okay.
Well, he's going to have to be
He has
after
to see the
they
proof.
got Trump and Pence on like a little spit turning them like.
Perfect call. A perfect call.
Not at this
Bingo!
juncture. Not at this juncture. It's not going to be prudent. Pelosi's not going to get her man. I can tell you that right now.
All right. Let's introduce ourselves, starting from the right, because you're always right. And
Of
I
course.
already shared while you were talking, so I can actually look at you. So let's start to our right. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Judy James Gunn. I'm wearing my now button and of course my Tira Long button. Hi,
Yes.
Tira. Mwah. Wish you were here.
Good morning. My name is Ruth Perez. I'm a community advocate for the city, and I'm not wearing any buttons, but I do carry them in my heart, and one of them is the biggest one for me is the gun sense.
Yes.
I also share with Jenny with Now. I have not seen Melba for a good while, but I do support them. And I do support Medicare for All, and of course our candidate, Tara Long, for that.
Excellent. I'm Christian Cano, one of the co-hosts, and I have on my gun sense button, the Amnesty doodad. I was at a Moms of an Action meeting last night. Some great stuff still happening within. They helped flip Virginia, their House and their Senate, and they ran on gun safety platforms.
And
Yes.
in Virginia, a transgender politician won re-election for the first time in American history
Wow.
for a state level
Awesome.
office.
Excellent.
So
Great.
you know that was it was history in the making.
My understanding
Super
is usually
awesome.
what happens in Virginia usually starts to move this way because we're very similar demographically.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
So-
I mean, very, 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 very similar. But
Yes.
Danica, yeah, she won her re-election, so I was
Excellent.
very proud of her.
Awesome.
I am Jeff Scott, hombre del pueblo.
Man in town.
Man about
That
town.
was impressive. That was impressive.
El hombre del pueblo.
Did you look that up?
We
We
take
sound like
away
the
his
guy
tinfoil
from-
hat, and he almost makes sense.
You sound like the Dos
Almost.
Equis guy.
Well, anyway, I'm also taking credit for coming up with the first impeachment hearing official cocktail, which is Drano and psilocybin.
Oh wow!
Whoa.
Wow, we went dark. I think you're taking the Joker concert.
Let me get a blueberry.
Yeah. Have some blueberries.
Yeah,
Some
throw it into my
blueberries.
throat.
Wow.
Let me throw it through my throat.
I would think it would be a Molotov cocktail.
Well,
Well, originally it was Stoli and Kahlua, but that was already taken. So
Come on, one layer.
all right. Let's salute to Coffee and Produce.
Or to coffee and some vodka or something in those things.
I got tequila in mine. Muzzle.
Salute.
And I want to thank our sponsor today, which is every week, Manolo's Bakery, Manolo's
Manolo, thank
on
you.
Central Avenue. Please help yourself to some.
Gorgeous.
My Maranitos did not come.
That's right. They were actually, when I went there
Overbooked.
yesterday,
I'm gonna
they were
have one
busy.
My bad.
I was so impressed. There was a line out of Manolo's. And I was like,
Of
this is
course,
great
it was
news.
raining.
Their food's freaking good. That's why.
Yeah.
I mean.
And that's the great
honestly-
part of being Mexican or Hispanics is that every single time it rains, people don't work, and all they do is eat.
That's so racist. You are so racist.
I can't believe what a
I-
racist
listen,
thing that is.
I
Wow.
experienced it myself yesterday.
That
Okay,
is so wrong.
caldo
on so many
de pollo,
levels. I
and
wasn't
then
gonna say it.
my husband kept on getting up the sofa like every 15 minutes. You know those big chicharrones, the ones that you fry?
Yes.
He did that. He ate pepino with chile,
we're just swirling the drain right now.
Doritos.
Entering the
I'm
gates
serious.
of hell.
Thank goodness I don't have a bakery close to my house.
That was going to have my Latina
Bless your heart.
Oh wow!
This
He
is my
look a little bit like
Latina-
Ricky Martin.
This is my Latina bless your
La
heart.
vida loca.
Oh,
We are
yeah.
loca. We are Vita de Loca or something like that. This crazy train has left the tracks. I can tell ya.
Actually, if I see myself on camera,
Hey, Philip. Thank you.
I
Good
actually-
morning.
I have a cousin of mine who looks just like this.
For real? Take that off.
So she has
Oh, what?
the same highlights. All right. Listen,
You look kind of pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, welcome to- you are a pretty man.
Pretty, not cute. Pretty.
that's what you tell an ugly girl. You're so pretty.
No, actually, some way different.
All right. Listen.
So thank you, Manolo, for the pan
Yes,
dulce.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Manolo, and we'll be enjoying it all day today. In those, in
Just
Tara will-
imagine.
Tara
If it's
will see-
raining on a Tuesday,
Yes.
don't go to Manolo's.
Yes.
Good to know.
We'll save that. Okay, so we're going to talk about the topic, the chancla, and we had jokingly talked about this when we first started our show. I don't know how we started it, but it was very important that we all talk. And I've always known about the chancla just from my family, and as I started doing research, everyone else kind of knows what a
Yeah.
chancla is. So before I read the letters or whatever about it, tell me if you do know about it or what you know about it or anything like that. We'll start with whoever wants to start.
Well, honestly, and I knew about the chocolate growing up in San Antonio. I mean,
Okay.
you always heard those stories.
Yeah.
I mean, me being, of white descent or Anglo descent, and
Bless
when we were
your heart.
talking, bless my heart. But when we were first discussing it, I wasn't really paying attention, and I thought we were going to do a show about the chupacabra for a second. I was like, wow, we're like a week or two too late. We should have done that around Halloween.
Halloween,
That would have been super funny. And then I realized, oh yeah. And then I watched the video, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember the chocolate. I remember kids growing up going, oh yeah, my mom's gotten the chocolate after me. And I remember the first time I got exposed to that, I was already in school. And then kids were like talking about chocolates. I'm like, what's a chocolate? I mean, it sounds like a really good food. I mean, and then I found out, and then when I saw somebody get beat with the chocolate, I was like, no, I don't want no part of that. I'll take a side of the opposite of that.
Choclariano.
Chocolate queso. I mean, you keep the cheese right off them. I mean, like.
Chocolate casserole.
I will say this show needs an enema today. I mean, we got it running today.
We're just gonna get so
Exactly.
demonetized.
Oh God, yes.
People are clicking off as we speak.
So,
They're laughing.
So Mama Ruth, as a mom, as a Latina mother with 5 boys and
3
3
grandkids.
grandkids, tell me what you know or don't know about chocolate.
It's crazy. It's hilarious how everything, even though we might not be from the same country as my parents are not from Mexico, they're from Nicaragua. In my country, they call it chancleta. Not chancla, chancleta.
Sounds like a
So-
Ben and Jerry's flavor there. I'm gonna when I'm fancy chocolate.
It's like there's a chancla and there's a chancleta.
Oh, bigger thing? Okay.
And all proceeds go to the Sandinistas.
Yeah. No, that's Irene Contra.
Los contras, yeah.
Not gonna do it. Not gonna do it at this juncture. We're not gonna even talk about that.
So have
So
you,
me
We'll blame it on
growing
Reagan.
up-
He couldn't remember anyway.
So me growing up was I was used to it. I think I was telling y'all earlier before we started the show, our generation and behind us, I mean before us as well, were grown by just looking at a chunk. You know, you didn't have to say a word, you didn't have to do anything. Just looking at it, you'll be like, okay, this is like my pacifier.
Yeah.
You calm down.
Yeah.
And I remember even in school, the teachers or the principals will call the school, will call the parent, and the parent will show up. And I remember one particular lady, one of my friend's mother, she literally will go with all her robes and, you know, her pajamas and stuff. And she would literally just take the chancla down to the classroom. And
Yeah.
the little boy was like, "Oops, that's it."
That's crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
I mean, to think about it.
I remember having the chancla used on me once by my mom, and I was young. I think I was in Catholic school. I did something or whatever, and I remember that. But I remember the chancla story, and it was kind of a humorous thing as you get older. And so when I see the videos of people, especially now, the millennials talking about the chanclas and making the videos and stuff,
making it so funny, but it sounds funny.
It is funny, only because it's something that we all know about. And every culture has their own chancla story. We were talking about this before. I mean, some people talk about their family used a switch.
A switch, yeah. I mean, in Texas,
some people use a belt, a paddle. Some people,
paddle.
They just stare you or they talk to you. Or so
the paddle that we use now to cut cheese.
Yes, that's right. The board. That's right.
We're already going back
That
to
was the
fading.
paddle.
That's right. That's right. It is like that. So, Jeff, you grew up in, or you're from California,
Right. And
Los Angeles.
You are originally from Los Angeles, or you grew up down there?
Southern, near the borders in Escondido, Hidden Valley.
Oh
That's where
wow!
I was born. I was born in Panama Hospital. Yeah. So I remember.
Why don't you speak Spanish?
Un poquito solamente. I remember going down to Agua Caliente when I was 5 or 6 years old in the back of a car when that area between Escondido and San Diego was not built up. So I remember, going to sleep in the back of a car and then waking up at, 11 or 12 in the morning with my grandmother who liked to play the horses and make the $2 bets at the horse races. So I remember I've got some memories from being pretty young and seeing Tijuana and those areas around there and the big highlight posters and stuff like that. So I've got some. Anyway, and then later as a teenager and then a young adult going down there to party.
So your grandma never used the chancla?
Did y'all have a version of the chancla in your family, or?
Yeah, I got. I had a.
Or do y'all have a joke in your family?
Well, no. I grew up with a stepfather, and I did some bad things, and I got the belt.
Okay.
The belt.
Okay.
Yeah, and.
Did he call it anything particular?
No, it was just, and I don't think he really even wanted to do it. I think my mother was like, "You gotta discipline him."
He's an enforcer.
Yeah, and of course, when you're a kid and you're getting spanked, even though it's always just for show, you're always screaming bloody murder,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
To make it much worse than it is. So in retrospect, I don't know if it was good or bad, but I did not raise my kids under
corporate punishment.
Any kind of threat of force.
So what was the method that you used as a punishment or as a?
Well, it's kind of like, when I was training my dog, help, getting some training. Recently, one of the things. Listen to me. One of the things that the trainer said was, "Look, dogs want to do the right thing, right? And so you have to give." And I said, "Yeah, that's kind of the way I raise my kids. I know my kids are always." Goal directed, right? They've always got a purpose in mind, even if it's just like vegetating in front of the television. They got a purpose in mind, and they always have to be respectful of what it is that they're doing, even if you think it's wrong. And say, what is it you're trying to accomplish? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What do you want to see? What's going on? And so I don't know that always worked, but I think you still have to respect kids. And their goals and their purposes and what it is they're doing.
Never ground them?
It's
never taken away anything?
It's not a very good punishment, but it is, whether it's a form of detention or losing an opportunity. My oldest, my boy, I mean, at a certain point there was like nothing we could take away from him that would change his behavior. It's like Go ahead and take that away.
He took him to Libertarian Party membership drive.
So let me briefly tell you one point of view. This was an article that was done by NPR. A gentleman by the name of Juan Vidal. He wrote a story about the La Chancla history, and I'm just gonna just briefly
paraphrase.
Yeah, it's not that one, Jenny. This is we have this one. This is for Latinos who for Latinos who grew up under the reign of La Chancla, also known as the flip flop. The idea of corporal punishment is not a foreign one. Many of us, from the moment we could speak in full sentences, already knew the sting of discipline and all it entailed. We knew if you got out of line, whether it's a post office, the grocery store, there would be the chancla rule. And because apparently there was a video that was done back in 2000, when this was done, 2014, and it gotten over 5 million clicks or views. And he was talking about it from the kind of like what you were talking about it, about some of those responses were not favorable to joking and laughing about the chancla experience, and especially there were kids that are people who felt like it was too harsh for them. Yeah. And it's a great article, and we'll post it. And he talks about this lady, Hispanic lady or Latinx lady, Dr. Linda Fuentes, who wrote a book called Child Abuse and Culture, working with diverse families, and how the La Chancla kind of led up to that in the Hispanic family. And he ends his essay or his story about saying that I'm not sure what the answer is here. Where do we even start? A good place might be to stop laughing about it. So when I read that, I paused a second, but then I think it seemed like it was from a person who approached it as, there's different people raise their children differently.
All right.
I was raised with a spanking. I was very rarely, I maybe spanked once by a chancla by my mom and once by my dad, probably. But it was more after that, it was different. But some people don't believe in spanking their kids at all. So everyone's different. Then we'll end the show by reading the other one from the San Antonio article. But I can say that every culture has stereotypes. And those stereotypes are based off of what people observe. And I will say that there is a stereotype with white kids today in public the stereotype is they just do whatever they want to do and they're misbehaved. And then you see Latinx kids or other culture kids, and they're usually better behaved in public. I don't know if that has anything to do with how they were disciplined, or what the freedoms that they have or something. But so I joke, at least when you're saying that story, maybe your kid needed the chancla. I don't know what the answer is to that or what it is, but I do think that I don't have any kids, but I would think that I probably would not. I would be more in your line. I probably would not spank my child because I don't think of negative reinforcement. But I do think that the chancla, just the threat of it, kept me in line.
Yeah. But I think also it's a generational thing. I mean, because kids now are used to so many electronics. Well, that too. I mean. And then also the electronics, the short YouTube videos that, like, I live with a family and they have a 7-year-old and he is on electronics. And, when we were all 7, I mean, those things didn't even exist. I mean, so I think a lot of it was our generation was raised differently because we were in a very solid state, very, non-technological.
Not a lot of distractions.
Yeah, I mean, we had 3 TV channels plus PBS type thing. So
all we could really watch was Yosemite Sam.
Which was an awesome. I mean, I was a big fan of Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner myself. I mean, Wile E. Coyote, super genius. But I think you see kids nowadays, man, I think it's intercultural. I mean, I see Latinx kids, African American kids, white Anglo kids running around, and I think that because their attention span's so much shorter, they have these little bursts.
That's why they should be in public.
And spoken by somebody who's never had kids.
I want to mention something about
long time.
growing up, it's not only the chancla, it's just a name that was given as a discipline.
Yes,
Right.
That's right.
I'm bringing back my memory
Mhm.
right now when you were talking. I remember when you said everyone would get spanked and cry, like if they were dying. I remember one time my uncle, and I was not a hyperactive kid. I mean, I would be well behaved. I was the only girl at that time. And my uncle used to discipline us. So he would come and he would actually lay me on his legs, on my butt. And he would just use, and they used to call it Juan Moreno. This was called Juan Moreno. It was he would go outside, cut the branch off, a real thin branch, peel it all
Oh
up.
my goodness! Like a.
Then kind of sand down the little, the little knots that are on the branch. And that thing will make some noise even if you would just move it. And it will say Juan Moreno. And he will make me smell it. Like he would put it on my like this. Like, what does it smell like? And I would have to say, Juan Moreno, that takes away the bad and puts the good things in me.
Wow.
That's how strict it was.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think the bottom line of the chancla, it's just an artist name, but it was the real meaning of it was how your parents were disciplining you.
And they wanted to sort of purge evil
My
spirits and
My mother was different. My mother was the type of person that she would use the chancla, but not only the chancla, she would have an iron. Whatever was there, it will fly. Or she will make me kneel in a corner with two shoes on my hands for about whenever she would feel like it was worth it. I could not let them down. I could not. It was a military style.
Wow.
Because she was in the military.
Yeah.
So it was her style of discipline.
I was
So
going to
there
say,
was
it seems
different-
like you got red lighted like the
You know what I'm
Marines.
saying?
I mean, like
Yeah, because she was
co-breaded.
because she
I
was
mean,
a
like-
sergeant. She was in the military, so she
Wow.
had that. So when I grew up and I have my kids, I don't want to produce that.
Yeah.
I don't want to have the same thing I did. So I had to learn my own way. And my boys, I mean, I didn't have to spank them. I mean, my oldest one gets mad sometimes because I did spank him once or twice, and he tells me, "Why don't you do the same thing that you did to me with them?" And I'm like, "Because you were my pattern to start off being a mother. I didn't have experience, so I was kind of working on you." But other than that, I mean, my kids, yes, they've done wrong, but I do take discipline. Like, okay, you're taking your phone away. You're not going out this weekend. You're not allowed to go anywhere. Blah blah blah, and they'll get used to it.
I guess I'm just a little old school. I just think that, and my brother posted something. And thank you, Dr. Gina, for joining us. And she's probably a person we should be asking about this because she's a child psychologist or something. I believe if we had more chanclas in this world, we wouldn't have all these ratty kids running around and doing the stuff that they do. Because I felt like I was such I was just a disciplined kid. I thought I was. Maybe I wasn't. But like my sister, I've seen her raise her kids, and they're great, wonderful kids. But she raised them differently. My brother.
I agree with Philip when he says positive enforcement or negative raised with respect over fear.
Yes.
And thank you for your opinion because I do agree with it. Now that I have my grandchild, he's 5 years old and he is very. I mean, I cannot nod my head saying yes. I have to declare him and say the word yes when he asks me for something because if not, he will not move. And we've never spanked him. We've never, not even put him on timeout. He is very disciplined by letting him know his choice, by letting him be himself. And, I think parenting, we have a lot to learn. And nowadays it's getting worse because, yes, we make fun of the chancla. But to be honest, it's not about the chancla. It's how to discipline our kids.
So
how to
chancla
that
would
respect.
be a metaphor for disciplining?
Yes.
Is that?
Well,
Culture
it could
In our
it
culture.
could be, and that's fine. I'm just. This is really a hard subject because I'm thinking about all the times when I was, short-tempered with my kids, and I could have. We could have had a better conversation. We could have had a better meeting of the minds about what it is that we needed to do together to resolve the differences. And I'm also just sort of jumping outside for a second. You know, we had a discussion about crime in Charlotte, and we had a discussion about the murder rate and people resolving their differences
How they resolve
by
differences.
pulling out guns and
Violence.
shooting one another, and that's the way people are resolving their differences. So I don't ever want to think that, at least my responsibility to the species and to global harmony and to home harmony, that I don't want to be contributing to that. I don't want to send out some kid who doesn't know how to resolve differences with people in a respectful manner.
So don't you think if more people in the city of Charlotte pulled out chanclas instead of guns, we'd have a safer city?
No, I adamantly disagree.
I'm
As
asking
somebody
the-
that raised 3 kids, I never spanked any of them.
Yeah.
You know, and one was a biological kid, 2 were stepkids. So I raised 2 sets of different dynamics, and I can tell you, I never spanked my kids. My kids, all 3, turned out to be wonderful adults. And I think when you are so aggressive with your kids, that you all you do is impact them with trauma. I mean, and all joking aside, I think we do all of our kids a disservice by threatening them. They like you said, they want to do the right thing, and I think when we they teach educators not to raise their voice, because when you raise your voice and the kids and get louder, and then it turns into this
escalation.
Basically mutual assured destruction, you know, and I think weaponizing anything never does any good.
Well, I guess you never went to Catholic school.
No, I was raised by a
the nuns
military
were
guy.
known for-
Yeah.
That's like a military thing,
I
though.
got abused as a child, and so for me,
You don't want to do the same thing.
So
there's
so-
no way. There's no way I could.
It sounds like you're probably more on the line of what this writer Juan Vidal with NPR wrote in 2014. I'm going to read another paragraph. It says, on the issue of physical discipline, Hispanics are right in step with most other Americans. According to a Harris poll conducted last year, this was in 2014, 4 in 5 Americans believe that it is sometimes appropriate for parents to spank their children. In a study examining 20,000 kindergartners and their parents, researchers found that 80% of Hispanic parents admitted to spanking their children. As for mothers being the disciplinarian of choice, research by Child's Trend Data Bank found that Hispanics were the only group where more women than men felt a good spanking was sometime necessary for kids. I'm curious if that's maybe why the humor behind the chancla is usually with the moms. Or that's passed along.
Well, for the most part, in Hispanic Latinx families, aren't they predominantly matriarchies? I mean, usually it runs through the mom.
We could do a whole show on that. We could do a whole show about
Dad only cares about. Dad is only good, not cares.
Yeah.
Dad is only good to provide and go outside and work and just bring in the
training.
Well,
it's and that's why we have so many bad parents, bad fathers nowadays, because kids see that. They don't see no mutual help between housework, house chore, everything. And now that my son just had his newborn, you know, I really enjoy them being at home, because at least they can see and I can help them and encourage them that, you know, hey, if she needs to go out, you stay with the baby. You need to change her. You need to feed her. You know, not everything.
So his
has
mom
to
didn't
depend.
teach him that?
Yes, that's what he's doing it, because that's what he's doing it, because believe me, God has blessed me with a great man that when I don't want to cook, he'll cook. And I'm always posting, I don't lie about that. He can cook.
Well,
but back to this passage, because it's true that we sometimes there's a lot of humor around and a lot of joking around things that make us uncomfortable, and it is a way to ridicule is a great way of changing people's behavior and thinking about the culture. Comics. There have been great comics, right? George Carlin, for example, who talk about important things that is in people's conscious and in their subconscious about behaviors that they've got or things that they think, and so it's probably a good service, people are joking about
Sure.
it,
Yeah.
and then because they're raising the question, should I do it or should I not do it? Is there an alternative? We can joke about it and say it leads to good results in some cases, but clearly, some people are going to come out and say, it probably wasn't a good idea to hit me or abuse me or leave scars on me when I was young.
Yeah.
So time to think about
But I
it.
think it starts the conversation. too,
That's
right?
what I was next to that.
It's a lighter way and I think all of our social movements kind of came through comedy. I mean, you think about Ellen, you think about the LGBT movement, a lot of the early LGBT actors and actresses usually came from the comedy world. I think of all the female lesbian comedians like Sandra Bernhardt, Ellen DeGeneres. They eventually came out in their career.
Personal pain maybe brings. That's how they deal with it.
The mayor of San Francisco.
It's softer too. It's a softer approach.
Tom Amiano, I saw him as a comic, and he was extremely funny, man. Oh my God, he was funny.
I think that answering your question earlier about if we would put up our weapons and take out our chanclas, the best thing to do in Charlotte, and I encourage everyone, and this is one of the best thing that I've been encouraging parents, is sitting at a table and have different mothers and kind of experience and speak about, because sometimes the frustration and the desperation that is going on with money-wise, work, everything, all that pressure, sometimes they let it out on kids.
Sure.
And that's the hard thing. The worst thing that you can do is to discipline a child. If you get a phone call from your school and you're under pressure, that's the worst thing you can ever do to a kid, because that's going to traumatize them, that's going to make it worse, and that's going to feel that child is not wanted.
Sure.
That's true, but life is full of stressors, work and relationships and money and everything else. So, you're going to have those moments, and you just need to work through it and get past it. And hope if you do something like that to your kid, you got to pray that your kid is gonna understand.
Sure.
And just look at at your own trauma.
We need parents to combine each other and and sit here like on a round table and talk to each other and help each other support themselves.
That is the thing that we talk about
Latinos
often.
don't do that.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot, not just on this show, but I think in the city of Charlotte, the meetings we go to, where because of the changing dynamics of America, many families, you had the counselors were your mom and your aunts and your tias, and they helped talk things over. And mija, don't spank them. Maybe talk
we had
to
the
them.
other one, the other side. You gotta do something about it.
And so there were conversations, because we live we're not in this demographically where we used to be. You can't just go across the street to your family's house. They're far away, so we don't often have that conversation that we have. Which is interesting you say that, because last night at the Moms in Action meeting, there was a gentleman who I met who was part of Heal Charlotte, and he talked about things that they're doing in the Black community in Charlotte to deal with issues, more mentoring, after school things. And afterwards, I spoke with him and I said, wouldn't it be great if the people that were trying to push that arts tax would have actually gone out to the communities and said, what do you need? Instead of saying, this is what you need.
Right.
Because that where there was a disconnect. But what you were saying is, it'd be great if we went out to the communities and asked the mothers or the dads, the parents, tell us what you need. They may say, we need recreation centers, we need basketball programs or arts programs or whatever they need.
And I know growing up, and I come from a fairly well-to-do family, but you need the community centers, you need the Boys and Girls Club, you need the Y. I mean, I played a lot of recreational basketball and things of that nature, and I think that sense of community, adults and kids. In fact, I was talking about this the other day with friends. We were at an event, and we said, but the only time we see each other is at these major events. Yeah, it has to be something big. Like I went to the Rain Party Saturday night, the superhero fundraiser, and it's like we get in these silos, and we're so separate from our neighbors now. we don't engage in block parties anymore,
Sure.
things of that nature, because we usually don't know our neighbors.
Yeah,
I mean, I
exactly.
don't know my neighbors where I live, and we've become so disconnected. I don't know how much of it's technology. I don't know how much of it is that our society is so mobile too. Like people, I mean, almost everybody here at the table did not grow up in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And then you've got Southern culture on top of that, which similar to Latinx culture, Hispanic culture, is bless your heart. Our family doesn't talk about that.
Yeah, exactly.
So when I came out of the closet, for example, we don't really want to talk about that, you know, and we just don't talk about stuff like that.
Yeah.
We don't ask, don't tell. I was probably invented by a Southerner. I mean, it's just something that I think is cross cultural.
So
what?
on the
¿Cómo se dice don't ask, don't tell in Spanish?
No preguntes, no digas.
Oh, okay.
no preguntas, no digas.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Let me just say one thing about that, because on a positive note about neighbors communicating, my block, my neighborhood, has two block parties a year, and we get around, we barbecue and drink beers, and get drunk, trip, and drown in the pond. But the neighbors behind us and the old farm neighborhood, they've got probably 2 or 3 parties a year, Halloween, where all the kids come out. And then Lansdowne across the street, they've got quite a neighborhood group.
Wow.
So there are neighborhood groups, and they do know each other, and they get together, and
I was
so
gonna say that.
it does happen.
My neighborhood, we even have it's called Sheridan and Indian Trail group, a private group, where we share a lot of our information and stuff. And every Friday at a different house, one of our neighbors. This Friday will be it's called this one is Autumn Leaves Bunko. We play bingo. We pay $7. We take a side dish or a bottle, whatever we want to do, and we co-join and get to know our neighbors.
Right. And
besides our block parties.
Right. Well, that's great. Let me just add one other thing to this. Right.
Y'all crack out the banjos?
Yes.
Because short 30 seconds. This is a dog-friendly town.
Yes.
And people are out walking their dogs on the trails and going to the off-leash parks and the different places. I like to go to Boys Park and McAlpine and Davie. That's fun. You get to meet your neighbors. You get to shoot the breeze with them and
I agree.
And argue with them about picking up their dog stuff on the ground.
Exactly.
Yep.
We are probably one of the pet-friendliest cities that I know of. Because many people here don't just have one pet; they have dogs and cats or multiple pets.
That's right.
The problem is what I see is that kindness that we show dogs in this city. We don't often show that kindness to
humans.
people. Yep. And there are people that treasure their dogs more than they do people of color, which is one of the things I have met many because I'm very, I've got dog.
You're sensitive to it.
Yes, and I they're wonderful. I've seen these individuals that are wonderful with dogs, but I've seen how they treat people, and for some reason that doesn't. I'm hoping that. I guess
Christian's about as sensitive as 20 grit sandpaper. I mean,
and that makes him very special. Because I mean, if he cares for pets, he loves his pets. But I mean, he understands that pets, even though they're animals, but they're animals. He cares a lot more how he has his pets, but people don't really care about the humans out there.
Well, I mean, I think that goes to the how people self-sequester themselves. I mean, that was a big word.
We have this.
That actually hurt.
Word.
Yeah, that was a Jeff word. I think he said it a couple weeks ago, and I stole it. Yeah, I'm like imitating. Oh, I'm not imitating Jeff. I'm gonna go on the record right now. Not gonna do it. It's never gonna happen.
Wouldn't be written at this
I
time.
don't even have tinfoil in my house because of my association with him. I don't want to be like making a little doo-doo hat. But I think people just have gotten so isolated. I mean, with Netflix and the internet and the book of the face and all that. I mean, I think we just get. I mean, you go into like a
Libro de la cara.
I think what's weird is when you see a couple out on a date, and they're freaking texting each other and they're sitting at
I
the same
went to
table.
a Saturday with my husband. Yes, I hate that.
And I'm like, and we had a cool conversation the other day. So Meredith Dean, that does the Dean's List here in town, does these really cool conversational things, did EmpowerCon and that sort of thing. Hi, Meredith, if you're watching. And one of the things she does these dinner parties. And one of the rules of the dinner party is she took a box and we put all of our cell phones in it. And we had a legit, real conversation where nobody was sitting here doing this. And we were all engaged. And you know, I think, you know, the worst thing you can do is get so wrapped up in the cell phone, and I do too. I get the point. I mean, like right before the show, I was playing a little farm game, and but I'm still laughing at Jeff. For the record, I always have time to laugh at Jeff in all conservatives.
She can multitask.
I got hot and cold running BS coming through my veins.
I bet you can multi-shirk too.
Well, I can. You'd be amazed. I could shirk and shank you, if you know what I mean. So,
Jenny, I will say that you know, as someone who was raised by two parents up until I was in fourth grade, and then I was raised by a single parent, my dad. I didn't receive a lot of punishment per se from my dad like I did from my mom. I remember those time periods. My dad was more of the words. The words hurt more. But my brother, who is watching us today, has raised his son with similar to you, and he's made some comments. He said, I have agreed with Jeff more on this show than any other time ever. And he's got a wonderful, just
let's go.
Lucas, incredible. You know, everyone has different parenting styles, but I just, you know, we wanted to talk about the chancla because it was humorous too. But after reading that, I encourage everyone to look at this old article. If you can, Google Juan Vidal. The article, the opinion was "La Chancla Flip-Flops as a Tool of Discipline." It was published by NPR in 2014. It's a really interesting short read. It's interesting, but he explains things. But now I want us to read the article that was in the San Antonio paper, which I think more reflects probably what those of us who find humorous. La Prensa is a San Antonio Hispanic family-owned newspaper. Has been in business since 1922. It says, La Chancla is the secret of our culture. It is the most effective weapon known to Latin kid. This tradition techniques keeps us in line. Some kids have described it as a weapon of mass destruction. Growing up, Teo, our methods of discipline were very straightforward. You did what you were told, or you were punished. Not obeying guaranteed chancletazo, offering to hit other things such as the belts and tree branches was not out of the question. You can continue to read that. It's a really good article, but it talked about the chancla as well. He said, never said it again. In my grandmother's case, not a curse was ever said. Let's bring back the chancla. And so I think that perspective was more from the perspective of those of us who grew up with the fear. I don't want to say the word fear because that comes across as like mean, but the respect.
No, there was fear though.
Down at the last paragraph, it says we didn't have the chancla. We had a look that
exactly. That's really what I remember.
Yeah.
I remember the look. But it's formed into my mind the chancla. So when I see the videos where the moms are with the chancla like nunchucks and they fly across, you know, this. Eddie Murphy does a great.
And see, I agree with him when you were saying earlier, and I think we all agree. We also had a community discipline. Aunts, uncles, neighbors also pitch in. That's something that we have forgotten.
Yes, exactly. It takes a village to
and I think also we don't live near our families anymore.
Sure. But our neighbors, our friends,
our neighbors can be family members.
Yes.
I remember we lived close to all of our family, but I remember if I had gone to Piggly Wiggly or something, I would see neighbors and they would give you a look like, I know what you're doing. No, like, I know what you're doing. I know your dad. You know, you didn't do anything to embarrass your family.
Correct.
Or
everybody had eyes on somebody.
Yes.
I mean, you know, and that's how we were able to play outside. That's what we were. I mean, me and my brother were like little yard apes. I mean,
your neighbors nowadays, your own friends that will party and stuff, they could see your child at a nightclub and they will not let you know.
Yeah.
Nowadays, they don't care. They're like, oh, I respect his choice. I'm like, that child can get a high dose of drugs or whatever, can overdose, and you've seen them and you don't even care. I mean, that's how bad it is.
Well, no, I agree. Listen, we only have about 5 minutes left, and so this was a great. I wish we had been able to talk about this, because this really kind of morphed into something more than the chancla. Talk about maybe the need to discipline, or is there a need anymore to discipline how we discipline kids? But that's, you know, when you live in a big city like Charlotte, we're not a small city, so there's not one size fits all for any neighborhood or any community.
Well, are there any political implications of this? Because we in the past we've talked about how a lot of people are motivated to vote because of their fears, deeply embedded fears. We know around the world there is an inclination to support, and in Latin America, inclination to support strong leaders. Jefe Máximo, right? Jefe Supremo, and not just Latin America, but other parts of the world. People like military dictators. They like people who can wield a lot of force. There's a lot of stick in our politics right now, and there's not a lot of carrot. Okay.
Well, I mean, I disagree. I mean, I think
you do.
Yes,
Jenny disagrees with Jeff.
I mean, I think that there's a lot of people that put the stick, aka the Bible, and a lot of other things into discussions to intimidate, to win elections. And I think a lot of times that these tyrants, like Jefe de Amarillo, that we have right now, is they use fear. They use the tactics. Like, if you don't elect,
that's what I'm saying.
And I think when they use fear tactics, and I think you see that in communities too. Like, oh, we need more police officers. We need this, and I think we don't need more police officers, but we need better. We need maybe better trained about de-escalating situations. Do more community policing.
That was good.
I'm doing more engagement, doing more things where we see. I think it's the same as the way I run my life.
Sure.
One of the reasons I go to so many political events is not because it's fun. It's actually terrifying at times. But how do I get people to engage the change in their community if I never meet them?
Sure.
If I never go to, like, I went to Senator or candidate Cal Cunningham's thing on Sunday. I may have been the first trans woman he's ever met, and I brought up an issue about the LGBT community at the deal, and so getting that engagement, meeting your neighbor, meeting your Latin neighbors, your neighbors of color, all these engagements, all these intersections are important. Like meeting our Turkish neighbor that we had on the show and learning so much about Turkish culture that day was impactful. And you also look at them differently. So when you hear about the Turks and the Kurds on the news, you maybe are more sensitive about the comments you make about it because you met somebody from Turkey and
right. I mean, I was making a broader point about what we're doing in the world in foreign policy, which I know that we're in general agreement on. There should be more diplomacy. There should be more carrots.
Well, I think there should be,
and we shouldn't be reacting with violence to every
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I am all for whoever runs for office if they will now add the chancla on their platform, and that will be. And so on that
then
note,
we'll have kids. We'll have kids voting for him like this.
Not gonna do it.
Actually, I survived the chancla.
Not gonna do it. Not prudent at this juncture.
Listen, we're gonna go ahead and end the show, but before we end the show, and we're not gonna read the Constitution quote of the week today because I can't. We forgot to.
There's not a chancla in it.
There's not a chancla one in it.
There is a chancla in there.
The Second Amendment?
I think no. No.
Who would have thought the
I think
Second
it was the
Amendment was
four. Isn't it the four?
Right to bear the chancla?
We should. That would be
Right to bear the chancla?
Yes, everyone has the right to
Let's
bear.
do a pledge
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
chancla.
That would be a funny.
Freedom to use the chancla. The Third Amendment. It's part of our religion.
Well, I guess it's an interesting question. Maybe we should have some of the government of Mexico.
Or the First Amendment.
Their founding
We
documents.
talk about the
I'm
chancla.
gonna do some research on that because I don't think in Mexico either it's not legit.
Well, they've got
the
a,
chancla.
they've got a different legal system.
Yeah.
And so it would be
Yeah.
interesting to
Broad
have-
Find out.
Well,
Hey
it's-
everyone, please
oh, yeah.
comment if y'all think of
Yeah.
something about something
Exactly.
legally.
So-
Legalize the chancla.
Legalize the chancla.
I think we've probably got we got 5 minutes and 43 seconds.
Woo!
Well, we started that a little late.
Yeah.
Oh,
so-
okay.
So we have less. Than
Actually,
Okay,
we've
so-
been on air for 54 minutes.
Okay, so we got about
we
5
have
minutes.
5 minutes.
So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. And the chancla, I encourage everyone who wants to know about our culture, and our culture is just as diverse as the other culture. You have, this is from yesterday. I have the same jacket on. Anyway, the chancla is kind of a humorous thing. If you watch Latinx comedians like George Lopez, more of the older ones, they talk about La Chancla.
Yeah.
They talk about those things that, yes, I was about to tell everyone to put on the chanclas.
Even
But this
what's her
is-
face?
So underneath you,
Don't they have to be like bright orange or green?
only,
No, the plastic ones.
The
You know,
plastic-
the ones when you
Kmart
go to
ones.
get your manicure,
like
your pedicure.
Crocs. Okay, so these
Crocs are
are
like Australian chocolate.
these are different forms of chanclas.
Chanclas.
And if you look at the videos, it's
We should post a video.
Y'all have some
on
boring
underneath.
ass chanclas. I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah,
I
these are
just
not.
bought
These are
mine.
not chanclas.
Now that's a chunk.
so
That's a
there's
Nunchucks.
nunchucks.
The nunchucks.
If you look at the videos, there's videos of them keeping alligators away. There's all they're
Your
they're-
mileage may vary.
They're incredible. And just the threat of what they're like boomerangs. They can go around the corner. But Eddie Murphy, and it's interesting.
The
Eddie Murphy in his younger days, if you watch his stand up on his younger days, he talks about growing up and his. I think it was his aunt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They used to discipline with shoes, and she's falling down the stairs. She's like, "Oh Jesus, Lord, help me, Lord Jesus!"
Oh, yeah.
And then she goes,
That
"My
was the
shoe!"
vacuum
And then
barbecue
she
one,
says, "My
yeah.
shoe!" And so it's I guess that's the quickest thing you could grab to discipline someone. Which of course
Yeah.
you would hope that you would not discipline someone
with
with anger
some,
like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that might be the problem that we didn't talk about, right?
Yeah.
Because it's impulsive. You know,
Yes.
they're not deliberating about it. They're not doing what your uncle's
Correct.
doing by going out and doing the tree thing.
Oh no, he would talk to me
Yeah.
before he would spank me.
Yeah.
Like he would literally give me a whole
I just say spank
show.
me.
So he would give you due
Like a
process.
speech, yes. He would tell me, look, I don't like to do this,
That
but
seems like
this
torture.
is something.
Como
But it
se
wasn't
dice-
hard. It wasn't
Como se dice due process?
due process.
Due process. Like,
Procedimiento, un proceso.
so
Un
that's what you
proceso.
got.
Yeah, it wasn't that he abused me or
Waterboarding.
left me any marks or anything.
Yeah.
He would literally tell me, I don't want to do this, but next time, oh, and I was not allowed to scream or cry.
Yeah.
So it was just like, boom,
Okay.
boom.
So
and that
the
was it.
chancla has got an aspect of it that we didn't talk about, which
Yeah.
is that it's impulsive.
It's impulsive.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
that's right.
When
Yes.
you're reacting
Yes.
to anger.
That's
Well,
right.
I did-
And
I did mention that.
Yeah, we did talk a little
Like
bit
you
about
can
it.
grab
Yeah.
whatever and just
But I
smack
didn't,
it.
it didn't dawn on me until
Mhm.
just now
Well,
that a lot of people do it
Yeah.
in a very impulsive manner.
Yeah.
They don't say, if you don't clean your
Sure.
room or come to the dinner table, I'm going to come in here with my flip flop
Yeah.
and flop you upside the head.
Well, see, I remember, especially like people before, or I remember before the remote
Yeah.
control for television.
Yeah.
You had to
And
get up.
I jokingly used to use the chancla to hit that knob, which is why the knob broke.
I'm surprised
And
you weren't
so-
spanked a lot more.
I-
Telling that. I mean,
yeah,
come
well,
on.
it was either
Sounds
that
to
or
be like
pliers.
Caesar
That's
hand.
$1,000
That-
piece of
that
equipment.
sounds
What
like
are you doing throwing
Like
your
a
shoe
scissor
at
hand,
it?
man.
Probably
Okay.
blamed it on
How
Philip.
La
How many-
televisión, that's
how many-
zapato. You're a saboteur.
How many-
Zapato, chancla.
Zapato.
How many people have wanted to know what time it was and went to the microwave and went clear to see the correct time.
Oh God.
So
Okay.
we all have.
Okay, but you wouldn't throw a shoe at your microwave.
No, I wouldn't. No,
Okay.
no, that's
Only sick kids do that.
Okay, that's
I'm,
right.
I'm
So
glad you've recovered.
listen, this has been a great conversation. We're going to go ahead and end it. And I want to thank everyone. If you want to know more about La Chancla, Google La Chancla. Now, Chancla, I had been misspelling Chancla.
Yeah.
I had spelled it CHANLK.
CKLA. No.
It's CHANCLA.
That's right.
There's not a K.
Chancla,
It's
not a
Chancla.
K.
The C
And we
is a
might
hard
we might
consonant.
even have Manolo do some.
Chancla.
Chancla. We
Concha,
also
yes.
have the pig,
Yeah.
which they were out of
Yeah.
yesterday. So maybe
Yeah.
we can start making the chancla.
Yeah.
By the way, there was a great article on the 11th on the Charlotte Agenda on Manolo and what he does with the community.
Oh yeah. I
It's
saw
a
that.
wonderful, wonderful article, and please read it. He's so involved in the community and does more with his actions than his talking. So it was great. So we're going to end by telling us where you're going to be, and I'm going to grab my chanclas and walk off. And I actually have.
Yeah. Gonna throw his shoe
Listen,
to turn it
I
off.
actually have by the back
Oh,
door. We have a chancla box.
That's because your
It-
dog's
it-
out.
Yes, it is a metal box that it opens up and it closes, and we put our chanclas in those, and we did it because the puppy would chew on the
Chew on
chanclas,
Yeah.
and so we actually have a chancla box, and I think that needs to be marketed.
Mm.
So
The chocolate
the
box.
chancla box.
I mean, like the
Chocolate
pet rock.
box.
I mean,
That's-
but
that's
more
right.
functional.
Oh, there we go. All right, so
The
thank you
chancla
everyone.
box.
The chancla box.
Time is
Alexa,
up.
play Pandora.
Ranchero Radio from Pandora.
All right,
It's a song called "Chew on My Chancla."
I got my chancla.
They have a chocolate song.
We all, Ricky Martin can make a comeback by saying "chew on my chocolate."
Jenny, where are you going to be?
Next week is Transgender Day of Remembrance, and unfortunately, we still have to have these because of all the mass killings of trans people all around the world. So that's where I'll be.
Well, I'll be at home not using the chancla.
I'll be collecting firewood on my property so I can burn it and stay warm. But yesterday I went to an interfaith opioid crisis meeting at a church in North Charlotte, and I think next week we're gonna.
Yes, we are.
On Tired and Wired, we're going to talk about opioids and a survey that I'm developing with the pain management community and any other issues that us tired and wired people can talk about. So looking forward to that.
I suggest not only the opioids, but try to bring a subject about the kids that are doing the vaping, how
Sure.
we are losing a lot of teenagers of lung
Yeah.
disease for that.
Yeah, we're happy to talk about the vaping
Great.
controversy too.
And if you have any suggestions about our shows, any ideas of what you want to hear from us, please don't hesitate to send us an email or send us a messenger. Write it down and give us your feedbacks. Good or bad, it helps us grow, all right? See y'all next Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye. You didn't say where you were going to be at.